The ground shook for nearly a minute after the explosion. Jake Morrison felt the vibrations through his boots as he crouched in the emergency shelter. 2 kilometers from New Haven, around him, 300 surviving colonists waited in silence. As debris rained down from the sky, when the shaking stopped, Jake slowly stood up and looked toward where his settlement had been. A massive crater had replaced the main excavation site. Smoke and dust filled the air, making it hard to see clearly. But he could tell that most of the buildings were gone. "Status report," Jake said into his radio. Amy Rodriguez answered first. "Security teams are intact. We lost the Johnson brothers when Building 7 collapsed, but everyone else made it out." Dr. Collins checked in next. "Medical team is operational. We have wounded, but no additional casualties from the explosion." Tony Parker's voice crackled over the radio. "Mining crew is safe. We can see the crater from here. It's huge, Captain. Really huge." Bill Hayes was the last to report. "Demolition successful. The entire tunnel network is collapsed. Nothing could have survived down there." Jake felt a mixture of relief and sadness. His people were alive, but New Haven was destroyed. Everything they had built over 3 years was gone. And the aliens still controlled the space around the planet. Susan Davis had managed to save some of her communication equipment during the evacuation. She set up her gear in the shelter and began monitoring alien transmissions. What she heard made her smile for the first time in 2 days. "Captain, you need to hear this," Susan said. She played back a recorded alien communication. The voice of Commander Vexthal came through the speakers, but he sounded very different now. Instead of confident and threatening, he seemed shocked and afraid. "Command, this is Vexthal. The human settlement has been completely destroyed, but we have lost nearly 4,000 troops. I repeat, 4,000 casualties. The humans detonated their entire colony. We need immediate evacuation for our wounded," another alien voice responded. 4,000 casualties from a mining colony? How is that possible? The humans were not what we expected. They fought like military units and used tactics we have never seen before. They turned their entire settlement into a weapon and used it against us. Jake listened to more intercepted communications and began to understand the situation. The aliens had expected an easy victory and instead suffered massive losses. Their remaining forces were scattered and demoralized. Some were demanding immediate evacuation, but Jake also heard disturbing news. More Zephyrian ships were approaching. The system, the Empire, was not giving up. They were sending even more troops to finish what they had started. "How many ships are coming?" Jake asked Susan. "At least 20 more vessels." "They will arrive in 4 days." Amy looked at the remaining supplies in the shelter. "We cannot survive another siege. We have food for maybe a week and very little ammunition left." Jake understood their situation. They had won a great victory, but they were still trapped on a hostile planet with limited resources. The aliens would return in greater numbers, and they would be ready for human tactics. "Did our distress signal get through to Earth Command?" Jake asked Susan. "I transmitted it before the bombardment started, but the nearest human naval base is 6 days away at maximum speed. Even if they left immediately, they would not arrive." In time, Dr. Collins was treating alien prisoners who had been captured during the fighting. The wounded Zephyrians were in shock, both from their injuries and from what they had experienced. Collins spoke to them through a translation device. "Why did you attack us?" Collins asked one of the aliens. The Zephyrian warrior looked up with large, frightened eyes. "We thought humans were weak. Our intelligence said you were just miners and farmers. We did not know you could fight like this." "We are miners and farmers," Collins replied, "but we are also human." The alien seemed confused by this answer, but Collins did not explain further. He continued treating the wounded, showing the same care to alien patients that he gave to humans. Tony Parker organized salvage teams to recover supplies and equipment from the ruins of New Haven. They found some weapons, medical supplies, and communication gear that had survived the explosion. Every item they recovered might be crucial for their survival. Bill Hayes worked on repairing damaged equipment and creating new weapons from salvaged materials. He had become the settlement's chief engineer and weapons expert. His ability to make useful tools from scrap materials was keeping them alive. Lisa Thompson assessed the damage to the power systems. The fusion reactors were completely destroyed, but she found some portable generators that could provide limited electricity. She began setting up a basic power grid for the shelter. As night fell, Jake gathered his leadership team to plan their next moves. They sat around a small campfire outside the shelter and discussed their options. "We cannot fight 20 ships with what we have," Amy said bluntly. "We need to consider evacuation." "Evacuate to where?" "We have no ships and no way to get off the planet." "We could hide in the mountains," Bill suggested. "Wait for Earth forces to arrive," Jake shook his head. "The aliens will hunt us down. They want revenge for what we did to their troops. They will not stop until they find us." Susan had been monitoring alien communications throughout the day. "Captain, I have been listening to their transmissions. The Zephyrians are having arguments among themselves. Some want to withdraw from this system completely." "Why would they want to withdraw?" Amy asked. "Because they are afraid of us. They lost 4,000 soldiers to a small mining colony. Their commanders are starting to wonder what would happen if they attacked a real human military base." Jake found this information very interesting. The aliens had superior technology in numbers, but they had never faced human military tactics before. Their easy victory had turned into a nightmare that would be remembered throughout their empire. "What are the other aliens saying?" Jake asked. "Some want to bring in their entire fleet and destroy this planet from orbit. They want to make sure no humans survive to tell about what happened here." This was the news Jake had been dreading. If the aliens decided to bombard the planet from space, there would be no defense. They could turn the entire world into a wasteland. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "The new ships will arrive in 4 days? Then they will decide whether to land troops or begin orbital bombardment." Jake looked at his people around the campfire. They were tired, hungry, and outnumbered, but they had not given up. They had already proven that humans could fight aliens and win. Now they needed to prove it again. "We are going to make them pay for every day they stay in our system," Jake announced. "We will hit their landing sites, sabotage their equipment, and make their lives miserable. When the Earth fleet arrives, we will still be here fighting." Amy nodded. "Guerrilla warfare. Use the terrain and make them hunt us." "Exactly. We know this planet and they do not. We will make them regret ever hearing the name New Haven." The humans of New Haven had lost their settlement, but they had not lost their determination. They would continue fighting until help arrived, or until they could fight no more. In space above them, Commander Vexville stared at the crater where the human colony had been and tried to understand what had happened. His forces had been destroyed by farmers and miners. The other alien commanders would never believe it, but the evidence was there in the massive crater and the thousands of dead Zephyrian warriors. The humans had taught the galaxy a lesson about the price of attacking Earth colonies. The war was far from over. Captain Vexstar stood on the bridge of the Silent Observer, his 6 eyes focused on the main display screen. The blue glow from the monitors made his gray skin look even paler than usual. His ship had been patrolling the outer edges of the Kepler system for 3 months now, looking for anything that might be worth studying. "Captain," called out sensor operator Kixana from her station, "I am picking up something strange on long-range sensors." Vexstar turned his large head toward her. His species, the Zephyrians, were known across the galaxy for being smart and careful. They did not rush into things. They studied everything first. "What kind of strange?" he asked, walking over to her station with slow, measured steps. Kixana pointed at her screen. A small red dot blinked in the darkness of space. "It appears to be a ship, sir, but the design does not match anything in our database. The energy readings are very weak." Vexstar leaned over to look at the readings himself. The ship was small, maybe 1/10 the size of the Silent Observer. Its power output was so low that their sensors had almost missed it completely. "Could it be a trap?" asked First Officer Kelvox, joining them at the sensor station. "Unlikely," Vexstar replied. "Look at these readings." Whatever species built this ship, they are far behind us in technology. The power core appears to be some kind of basic fusion system, very primitive. The bridge fell quiet as everyone studied the data. The Zephyrians had been the dominant species in this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had advanced technology, powerful weapons, and the best scientists in known space. Finding a new species was rare, but finding one that was less advanced than them was even more unusual. "Should we contact High Command?" asked Kelvox Vexstar. Thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let us investigate first. If this is indeed a new species, we want to gather as much data as possible before we report it." He walked back to his command chair and sat down. The chair was designed for his tall, thin body and 4 arms. "Kixana, run a full sensor sweep. I want to know everything about that ship. Kelvox, plot a course to intercept. Keep us at a safe distance." The silent observer turned slowly in space and began moving toward the unknown vessel. As they got closer, more details became clear on their screens. The ship had a strange design with sharp angles and flat surfaces. It looked nothing like the smooth, curved ships that most species built. "Fascinating," said Chief Science Officer Krelix as he arrived on the bridge. He was older than the others, with gray markings on his skin that showed his age and wisdom. The hull appears to be made of some kind of metal alloy. Very basic materials, but somehow they have managed to make it space-worthy. "Are there any life signs?" Vexstar asked. Krelix checked his portable scanner. "Hard to tell. The ship's hull is blocking most of our scans. But there are some very faint readings that could be biological. If there are crew members aboard, they are either dead or in some kind of suspended state." The captain nodded. This was getting more interesting by the minute. "What about weapons?" "None that I can detect," Krelix replied. "In fact, I am not seeing any obvious weapon ports or defensive systems at all. This appears to be some kind of exploration or research vessel." Vexstar smiled, showing his small, sharp teeth. The Zephyrians rarely found new technology to study these days. Most species they encountered were either too primitive to be interesting or too advanced to approach safely. This ship seemed perfect for their needs. "Bring us within tractor beam range," he ordered. "We are going to bring this vessel aboard." "Sir," said Kelvox, "should we not try to communicate with them first? If there are survivors aboard—" "Look at their technology level," Vexstar interrupted. "Even if they are alive, they pose no threat to us. And if we try to communicate, they might panic and do something stupid. Better to secure the ship first and then worry about any survivors." The silent observer moved closer to the strange vessel. Up close, they could see that it was indeed made of crude materials. The hull was covered in small scratches and burn marks, suggesting it had been traveling through space for a long time. "Tractor beam ready, Captain," reported the weapons officer. "Engage," Vexstar commanded. A blue beam shot out from the silent observer and wrapped around the smaller ship. Slowly and carefully, they began pulling it toward their cargo bay. The unknown vessel did not resist or try to escape. It just drifted along like a piece of space debris. "No response from the ship," reported the communications officer. "Either their communication systems are damaged or there is no one alive to answer." Vexstar watched as the strange ship disappeared into their cargo bay. Within minutes, the bay doors closed and the atmosphere was restored. Now they could begin their real work. "Krelix, I want a full analysis team down there immediately," he ordered. "But be careful. We do not know what kind of atmosphere these beings breathe or what diseases they might carry." "Of course, Captain," Krelix replied. "I will have my team suited up and ready within the hour." As the science officer left the bridge, Vexstar continued to stare at the data on his screen. Something about this felt too easy. In his long career, he had learned that when things seemed simple, they usually were not, but the sensor readings were clear. This was a primitive ship with primitive technology. Whatever species had built it was far behind the Zephyrians in every way that mattered. There was no reason to be concerned. Still, he decided to keep the ship at full alert until they knew more. It never hurt to be careful, even when dealing with inferior species. Down in the cargo bay, the human ship called Pioneer's Edge sat in the artificial light looking dead and harmless. But inside its hull, 12 human crew members were very much alive and very much aware of what had just happened to them. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the hidden command center, watching the alien ship's movements on his screens. Everything was going exactly according to plan. Chief Science Officer Krelix walked slowly around the human ship in the cargo bay. His environmental suit made soft humming sounds as it filtered the air and kept him safe from any unknown dangers. 3 other Zephyrian scientists followed behind him, their scanners beeping quietly as they gathered data. "The design is very strange," said Dr. Namara, the team's biology expert. "These angles and flat surfaces make no sense. Most intelligent species learn to build ships with smooth curves because they move through space better." Krelix nodded as he pointed his scanner at the ship's hull. "The materials are even more puzzling. This appears to be simple iron and carbon steel. How did they manage to make this work in deep space? These metals should have failed long ago." The ship sat under the bright lights of the cargo bay, looking small and harmless. It was only about 60 meters long and 20 meters wide. Compared to the silent observer, which was over a kilometer in length, it looked like a toy. "I am getting some interesting readings from the power core," said Engineer Zixel. He was the youngest member of the team and always excited about new technology. "It appears to be fusion-based, but the design is completely different from anything we have seen before." "Different how?" Krelix asked. "Well, our fusion systems use magnetic containment fields that require massive power inputs to maintain. But this system seems to use some kind of physical containment. Much simpler, but also much less efficient." Dr. Namara was scanning the outer hull with her biological sensors. "I am detecting traces of organic compounds mixed in with the metal. That is very unusual. Most species keep their biological and technological systems separate." Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Silent Observer, Captain Vexstar was talking to High Command through the long-range communication system. "The holographic image of Admiral?" Tixron appeared in front of him, looking stern and serious. "So you have found a new species?" the Admiral asked. "It appears so, sir," Vexstar replied. "The ship design is completely unknown, and the technology level is far below our own. We estimate they are at least 500 years behind us in development." Admiral Tixron leaned forward in his chair. "Any signs of hostility?" "None whatsoever. Sir, the ship appears to be some kind of exploration vessel. No weapons that we can detect, and the crew either died during their journey or is in some kind of hibernation state." "Keep me informed of your progress," the Admiral said. "If this is indeed a new species, the Council will want a full report." The communication ended, and Vexstar turned back to monitoring his science team's progress. Down in the cargo bay, they were making slow but steady progress in understanding the alien vessel. "The computer systems are laughably simple," Zixel reported over the COM system. "They appear to be using binary code with basic quantum processors. My students could build something more advanced." Krelix was studying the ship's external sensors. "These detection systems are very basic as well. They would not be able to see our ship coming until we were practically on top of them." But there were things that puzzled the Zephyrian scientists. The electromagnetic signatures coming from the ship did not match what they expected from such primitive technology. There were also strange readings from what appeared to be the crew quarters. "I am detecting some kind of biological activity," Dr. Namara reported, "but it is very faint and scattered throughout the ship. It does not look like normal life signs." Inside the human ship, the crew remained hidden in specially shielded compartments that had been built into the vessel's design. Captain Jake Morrison was crammed into a space behind the main computer core, listening to everything the aliens were saying through hidden microphones placed throughout the ship. "They think we're primitive," he whispered into his COM unit to the rest of his crew. "Just like we hoped they would." Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park was hidden in a compartment near the engine room. "Their scanning technology is impressive. but predictable. They're looking for the kind of technology they understand. Chief Engineer Ryan Clark was squeezed into a maintenance shaft near the power core. Good thing we built those fake systems. They're scanning our decoy fusion reactor and thinking it's our main power source. Dr. Kevin Hayes, the missions expert on alien life forms, was monitoring the aliens from a hiding spot in the science lab. These Zephyrians are exactly what our intelligence reports said they would be. Smart, careful, but arrogant. They assume any species less advanced than them must be harmless. The human ship had been designed specifically for this kind of mission. On the surface, it looked like a simple exploration vessel built by a species that had just learned how to travel between stars. But underneath the fake hull panels and behind the dummy computer systems, it was packed with advanced technology that the aliens could not detect. Back in the cargo bay, the Zephyrian team was becoming frustrated with their limited progress. Their external scans could only tell them so much about the ship's interior. "We need to get inside," Krelix told his team. "The hull is blocking too many of our sensors. Is that safe?" asked Dr. Namara. "We do not know what kind of atmosphere they breathe or what diseases they might carry." "Our environmental suits will protect us," Krelix replied. "And if there are any survivors inside, we need to find them quickly. They may be running out of air or dying from system failures." Engineer Zixel was already studying the ship's airlock system. "This should be easy to bypass. The locking mechanism is very simple. I can have us inside within minutes." On the bridge, First Officer Kelvox was monitoring the science team's progress when something caught his attention on the long-range sensors. "Captain," he called out, "I am detecting some unusual electromagnetic activity from the direction we found the alien ship." Vexstar frowned. "What kind of activity?" "It appears to be some kind of signal transmission. Very faint, but definitely artificial. Could it be coming from the ship we captured?" Kelvox checked his readings again. "No, sir. This signal is coming from much farther away. It started about 10 minutes ago, right after we brought the alien vessel aboard." Captain Vexstar felt a small chill run down his spine. "Are you suggesting that someone knows we have their ship?" "It is possible, sir. The signal appears to be some kind of coded transmission," Vexstar thought quickly. "If this species had other ships in the area, they might be trying to rescue their missing vessel. But their technology was so primitive that they should not pose any real threat." "Increase our alert status," he ordered, "and tell Krelix to speed up his analysis. I want to know everything about these aliens before any of their friends show up." Down in the cargo bay, the science team was preparing to enter the human ship. They had no idea that every word they spoke and every move they made was being carefully recorded by the humans hiding inside. "Remember," Krelix told his team as they approached the airlock, "we are dealing with an unknown species. Stay alert and report anything unusual immediately." As the Zephyrians prepared to cut through the ship's outer door, Captain Morrison smiled in his hiding place. The aliens were about to get their first real surprise. Inside the hidden compartments of the Pioneer's Edge, the human crew moved with quiet precision. Captain Jake Morrison checked his watch and nodded to himself. Everything was happening exactly as their intelligence reports had predicted. "Lisa, what's the status on our power systems?" he whispered into his comm unit. "Lieutenant Commander Lisa." Park was squeezed into a narrow space behind the ship's main computer banks. Her fingers moved quickly over a small control panel that was invisible to external scanners. "Backup systems are fully charged and ready," she replied softly. "I can restore partial power to our real systems without triggering their sensors. The fake fusion reactor is still putting out enough noise to mask our signature." "Good, Ryan. How are our engines looking?" Chief Engineer Ryan Clark was cramped in a maintenance shaft that ran along the ship's power conduits. Despite the uncomfortable position, he worked efficiently to prepare their true propulsion system. "The quantum tunnel drive is in standby mode," he reported. "I can bring it online in 30 seconds when you give the word." The aliens are still focused on our dummy fusion core. They have no idea what they're really looking at. Dr. Kevin Hayes was monitoring the Zephyrian boarding party from his hiding spot in the science lab. Through tiny cameras built into the ship's walls, he could see everything the aliens were doing. "They're about to cut through our airlock," he reported. 4 of them, all wearing environmental suits. "They're being very careful, just like our briefing said they would be." Morrison smiled. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for being cautious and methodical. They never rushed into anything, which made them predictable. Human intelligence had been studying them for months, learning their patterns and habits. "Remember, everyone," Morrison said quietly to his crew. "We stay hidden until Phase 2 begins. Let them explore and gather their data. The longer they think we're harmless, the better this will work." In another part of the ship, communications specialist Amy Foster was preparing for her part of the mission. She had been monitoring the aliens' communication frequencies since they were captured. "Captain, I've identified their command codes and communication protocols," she whispered. "When you're ready, I can start broadcasting our signal. Our backup should receive it within the hour." "Not yet," Morrison replied. "Let's see what these aliens do first." The Zephyrian cutting tools made soft buzzing sounds as they sliced through the airlock door. Krelix and his team worked slowly and carefully, not wanting to damage anything important inside the ship. "Hull breach in progress," Engineer Zixel reported to the bridge. "We should be inside within 5 minutes." Captain Vextar watched the operation from his command chair. Something still bothered him about this situation, but he could not figure out what it was. The ship readings were consistent with primitive technology, and there were no signs of deception. "Any change in the electromagnetic signals?" he asked his sensor operator. "No, sir," Kixana replied. "The signal transmission stopped about 10 minutes ago. Whatever it was, it only lasted a short time." Back in the cargo bay, the cutting was complete. Krelix stepped through the hole they had made in the airlock door and into the human ship. His scanner immediately began analyzing the atmosphere. "Air composition is suitable for most known life forms," he reported. "Nitrogen and oxygen mix. Similar to what we breathe. Temperature is cold but stable." Dr. Namara followed him inside, her biological scanners active. "I am detecting traces of organic compounds in the air. Definitely signs that this ship has been occupied recently." The interior of the ship looked exactly like what the Zephyrians expected from a primitive species. The corridors were narrow and poorly lit. The walls were made of simple metal plates held together with visible bolts. Everything looked functional but crude. "The construction methods are very basic," Engineer Zixel observed as he examined the wall panels. "They appear to have built this ship using manual labor and simple tools." What the aliens did not know was that they were looking at carefully designed fake surfaces. The real ship's interior was hidden behind false walls and dummy panels. Every detail had been planned to make the humans look like a species that had barely mastered space travel. "I am detecting some kind of control room ahead," Krelix said as they moved down the main corridor. "The power readings are stronger in that direction." They found what appeared to be the ship's bridge. It was a small room with basic computer terminals and simple controls. Everything looked like it had been built by hand using primitive technology. "Fascinating," Zixel said as he studied the control panels. "These interfaces are incredibly simple. Just basic switches and displays. No neural interfaces or holographic systems at all." Dr. Namara was scanning for signs of the crew. "I'm getting faint biological readings from several areas of the ship, but they are very weak. If there are survivors, they are barely alive." What she was actually detecting were the carefully placed biological samples that the humans had scattered throughout the ship. Small amounts of human DNA and organic compounds that would register on alien scanners, but would not reveal the presence of living people. Hidden in his compartment, Morrison listened to everything the aliens said. Their translation software was working perfectly, converting the Zephyrian language into English in real time. "They're buying it completely," he whispered to his crew. "Keep monitoring their movements. I want to know where each one of them is at all times." Lieutenant Tony Martinez was the mission's security chief. He was hidden near the ship's armory, ready to move when the time came. "Captain, should I begin Phase 2 preparations?" Not yet, Morrison replied. Let them get comfortable first. The more time they spend thinking we're helpless, the bigger the surprise will be. The Zephyrians continued exploring the ship, finding exactly what they expected to find. Crew quarters with simple furniture designed for bipedal beings, a small medical bay with basic equipment, an engineering section with the primitive fusion reactor they had detected from outside. This species appears to be in the very early stages of space exploration, Krelix reported to the bridge. Their technology is crude but functional. They have somehow managed to achieve interstellar travel, but just barely. Chief Weapons Officer Danny Miller was hidden near the ship's true weapon systems. Unlike the rest of the crew, he was not cramped into a small space. He was actually inside a specially designed combat pod that could deploy instantly when needed. Weapon systems are armed and ready, he reported quietly. I have targeting locks on their ship's main systems. When you give the word, I can disable their engines and weapons in under 10 seconds. Communications specialist Amy Foster had been listening to the aliens' radio chatter. Captain, they're planning to take some of our equipment back to their ship for detailed analysis. Should I stop them? Let them take whatever they want, Morrison replied. Everything they can access is fake anyway. The real question is how long we wait before springing our trap. Dr. Susan Green was the mission's expert on alien biology and psychology. She had been studying the Zephyrians through hidden cameras and sensors. Their behavior patterns match our intelligence reports perfectly. They're arrogant and cadent. They truly believe they are dealing with a primitive species. Good, Morrison said. That arrogance is going to be their downfall. The Zephyrian exploration team spent another hour inside the human ship, cataloging everything they found. They collected samples of the ship's materials and copied data from the primitive computer systems. Everything confirmed their initial assessment that this was a technologically inferior species. We have learned everything we can from external observation, Krelix reported to Captain Vexstar. I recommend we transport this vessel to our main laboratory facility for detailed study. Agreed, Vexstar replied. Prepare to transfer the ship to our science bay and begin preparing a full report for High Command. As the Zephyrians made plans to move the human ship, Morrison finally gave the signal his crew had been waiting for. Oh, stations, this is the captain, he whispered. Begin Phase 2. It's time to show these aliens what humans are really capable of. The Zephyrian boarding team had been inside the human ship for 2 hours now. They had examined every room they could access and collected samples from dozens of systems. Chief Science Officer Krelix was growing more confident that they were dealing with a harmless primitive species. The biological samples we found are very interesting, Dr. Namara reported as she studied her scanner readings. This species appears to collect specimens from other worlds. Some of these organisms are completely unknown to our databases. Engineer Zixel was taking apart what appeared to be a navigation computer. The components inside looked crude and simple, but there was something about their arrangement that puzzled him. The computer design is strange, he said to Krelix. These circuits should not be able to handle complex calculations, yet somehow this ship managed to navigate through interstellar space. Perhaps they use very simple navigation methods, Krelix replied. Plot a course to the nearest star and hope for the best. But Zixel was not satisfied with that explanation. He had been studying alien technology for 50 years, and something about this ship did not add up. The primitive components were connected in ways that made no sense, yet the system clearly worked. I want to examine their main computer core, he said. There might be something we are missing. Dr. Namara was in what appeared to be the ship's science laboratory. She found containers filled with samples from dozens of different worlds. Some contained plant materials, others held what looked like mineral samples, and a few contained biological specimens that made her very uncomfortable. Krelix, you need to see this, she called out over the comm system. The chief science officer made his way to the laboratory, moving carefully through the narrow corridors. When he arrived, Dr. Namara showed him a series of containers that lined one wall. These are not just research samples, she said, her voice troubled. Some of these organisms have been genetically modified. This primitive species has been experimenting with biological weapons. Krelix examined the containers more closely. His scanner confirmed what Dr. Namara had found. Several of the specimens had been altered at the genetic level and not for peaceful purposes. This changes things, he said quietly. We may not be dealing with simple explorers after all. Meanwhile, hidden throughout the ship, the human crew continued to monitor every move the aliens made. Captain Morrison was particularly interested in Dr. Namara's discoveries. They found our decoy biolab, he whispered to his crew. Good. Let them think we're experimenting with primitive biological weapons. They have no idea what we're really capable of. The containers that Dr. Namara had found were indeed filled with biological samples, but they were not weapons. They were carefully prepared specimens designed to make the humans look like a dangerous but primitive species. The real biological weapons were hidden in compartments that the Zephian scanners could not detect. Chief Engineer Ryan Clark was monitoring the aliens' examination of their fake computer systems. They're getting close to the main processor core, he reported. Should I activate the defensive systems? Not yet, Morrison replied. Let them dig deeper. The more they learn about our fake technology, the less they'll expect our real capabilities. Engineer Zixel had found his way to what appeared to be the ship's main computer room. The space was cramped and filled with primitive-looking equipment. Banks of simple processors lined the walls, connected by thick cables that looked like they belonged in a museum. This is incredible, he said to himself as he examined the systems. How did they manage to make these primitive components work? Together, he began running detailed scans of the computer core, trying to understand how such basic technology could control an interstellar spacecraft. What he found confused him even more. Krelix, I need you to see something, he called out. The chief science officer joined him in the computer room. Zixel pointed his scanner at the main processor banks. These computers are more complex than they appear, he said. The surface components are primitive, but there are additional layers underneath that I cannot fully scan. What kind of layers? Krelix asked. I am not sure. There appears to be some kind of quantum processing system hidden beneath the simple binary computers. But that should be impossible. A species with this level of technology should not understand quantum computing. Krelix frowned. This discovery did not fit with their assessment of the human ship. Run a deeper scan. I want to know exactly what we are looking at. As Zixel worked on his scans, Dr. Namara was making another troubling discovery in the ship's crew quarters. She had found personal belongings that belonged to the ship's inhabitants, and they revealed disturbing information about this species. These beings appear to be highly aggressive, she reported. I found weapons in every crew quarters, and their personal items suggest a violent culture. The weapons she had found were simple projectile firearms and basic energy weapons. To Zephyrian, they looked primitive and crude. What Dr. Namara did not know was that she was looking at deliberately placed decoy weapons. The real human armaments were far more advanced and completely hidden from her. Scans. Captain Vexstar was growing impatient on the bridge of the Silent Observer. His science team had been aboard the alien ship for hours, and their reports were becoming more confusing rather than clearer. Krelix, what is your current assessment? He asked over the comm system. The situation is more complex than we initially thought, Krelix replied. This species appears to be more dangerous than their primitive technology suggests. They have been experimenting with biological weapons and appear to have a violent culture. But they still pose no threat to us, correct? That is what our analysis suggests, but there are some inconsistencies in their technology that I cannot explain. Vexstar was quiet for a moment. In his experience, inconsistencies usually meant trouble. Continue your investigation, but be prepared to evacuate quickly, if necessary. Hidden in his compartment, Morrison was listening to this conversation with interest. The aliens were starting to have doubts, which meant it was almost time to act. Amy, start broadcasting our signal, he ordered quietly. Let our backup know that we're ready to begin. Communications specialist Amy Foster activated a hidden transmitter that was built into the ship's hull. The signal was disguised as background radiation and would be undetectable to Zephyrian sensors. But to human receivers it carried a clear message. Phase 3 was about to begin, back in the computer room. Engineer Zixel was making a discovery that would change everything. His deep scans had revealed something that should not exist on a primitive spacecraft. "Krellix," he said, his voice filled with alarm, "I think we have a serious problem." "What kind of problem?" "This computer system is not what it appears to be. The primitive components are just a shell. Underneath there is technology that I do not recognize. It appears to be some kind of quantum processing array, but the design is completely different from anything in our databases." Krellix rushed over to examine Zixel's readings. What he saw made his skin turn pale. The scanner was detecting technology that was not just different from Zephyrian systems, but potentially more advanced. "That cannot be right," he said. "Run." "The scan again?" As Zixel repeated his scans, Dr. Namara made another disturbing discovery. She had found a hidden compartment in the ship's medical bay that contained equipment she did not recognize. "I found some kind of advanced medical technology," she reported. "But it does not match the primitive level of the rest of the ship," Morrison smiled in his hiding place. The aliens were finally starting to understand that things were not what they seemed. But it was too late for them to do anything about it. "All stations, prepare for Phase 3, he whispered to his crew. "In 60 seconds, we show these aliens what humanity is really capable of." The Zephyrian boarding team was about to learn that they had made a terrible mistake. They had not captured a primitive exploration vessel. They had walked into a carefully prepared trap, and now there was no way out.